Oh yeah, it's hammer time. What's up guys, Pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review for chapter 224 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as The Decisive Battle in the Uninhabited Demon-Infested Shinjuku Part 16. Golly! 16? We're nearly in 2 volumes of this mess. Gege, change the name. You cut away. Change the gun. You know what? I'm gonna make a video renaming all of the different chapters. I will give the Battle in the Demon-Infested Shinjuku as one chapter title. Maybe. And then I'm going to rename the rest of them, because this is ludicrous at this point. But there's a lot of ludicrous things that are mentioned, brought up, explained, and pointed out in this chapter. So we have a whole lot to talk about. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Ending me. Ready. 3, 2, 1, go. What's up guys, Pencil here. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Higuruma, he has it on him. And he keeps it on him at all times. And another fun fact, Itadori Yuji has it on him, and it's built into him at all times. And another fun fact, on top of that fun fact, around that fun fact, Sukuna has it on him, and he keeps it on him at all times. And another fun fact on top of that, another fun fact on top of that, another fun fact on top of another fun fact. It's time for court, and it will soon be in session. But let's actually hop into the chapter itself. First things first, let's talk about this opening page, because we got a whole bunch of yapping in this chapter. I know y'all are going to be like, I know you are not critiquing a chapter for yapping. And in fact, I'm not. I actually really like the yapping in this chapter. So we open up, and we do get to see that Higuruma is coming down. Once again, this is the exact same cutoff that we had at the end of 239. I think it's 9. I think it's 9. Because that's right before we cut away, and then everyone crazy mad at 240, and then 242 and 243 and so on. So we're cutting back to this battle. And I do want to point something out here. There is no reason. We'll talk about the Yuta Kenjaku stuff. I am going to bring that up, but I won't bring it up here. I'll bring it up in a bit. First things first. Sukuna, if he was actually taking them seriously, it would have been an instant. Remember, Sukuna, while on the brink of being slaughtered himself, was able to throw out an evolved variation of his technique that we see he has to chant for. Higuruma, absolutely Himothy. Don't get me wrong. He's that guy, personified. He's just Himothy. But he ain't surviving a dismantle or a cleave. He's just not. So if Sukuna was actually about the business, if he wasn't cheesing and if he actually felt threatened by Higuruma's technique, since we know he knows it, he was listening in. He was there. He was like, oh, okay. So you got a technique that deals with legal codes. Oh, okay. Lucky you. I've been using Enchain every night to study them bad boys. So I got you, bucko. I think Sukuna knows what they're planning to do. And even if he doesn't know exactly what the plan is, the plan that gets established in this chapter, I think this grinning little fellow right here knows exactly what the long-term plan is. I think there's a solid chance that he has their number. He has their number, because there's no reason for him to not immediately execute Higuruma, right? Like, there's at least no logical reason. I can obviously chalk it up to, well, Sukuna, he's not the most logical of characters. He likes to have fun. We see this in the Gojo fight. But if he was actually concerned about what Higuruma and Itadori could do, or even the rest of the cast would do, he would immediately execute Higuruma. Because it doesn't take much. Remember, Sukuna's slashes are so casual, he just flicks his wrist. And he's the fastest and strongest we've likely ever seen him ever. So, Higuruma, again, Itadori being fast enough to do things, right? Sure, it's Itadori Yuji, especially considering the amp he got in this chapter was revealed to be. But Kama? That's a lie. Higuruma? I genuinely think Sukuna could just... Remember, they still can't see the slashes. They don't know how the slashes work, nor can they perceive them properly. So, if Sukuna really wanted to, instantly. It takes no time. Someone's talking about how it would take time for him to do it. No, it wouldn't. No, it really would not. This is the same guy who, while chanting, blitzed an electromagnetic wave, which moves at the speed of light. He split it in half before it could travel the distance to reach him. I think light can travel around the planet 7 times in a second. And Sukuna still blitzed that with an evolved version of his basic technique. And we've seen he can use his basic technique just like that. Just like he did with Ryu. Just flick a hand up and Higuruma should have been cooked. But I think Sukuna he's got something in the bag. He knows how he's going to argue this, or he's specifically looking for a bit of a fun challenge. Not the only person who could ever challenge him, or even come close to challenging him a bit in Satoru Gojo is now gone. And another thing that I believe Sukuna is so confident on is he does have Kamutoke now. The thing with Kamutoke, right, is that no matter what happens to Sukuna himself, say Sukuna does get confiscated, say he even gets the death penalty, which is gonna be the whole point of this entire chapter. If this funny little fellow right here gets confiscated, you can see it. It's still in his grip. He's got a weapon. Jeez, I need to clean this weapon. Hold on. One moment. I gotta clean it. It is looking jacked up. I have just cleaned the plate. I'm sorry, I've been listening to a lot. But with it being the case, he still has Kamutoke. He has it on him, and he keeps it on him at all times. I'm not kidding when I say that. And it has a curse technique imbued into it. And don't get me wrong, Sukuna can have his own curse technique confiscated. He can have Megumi's curse technique confiscated on top of that. He could have the black box confiscated, but he still has Kamutoke, which is completely independent of him, as we see by how it's formed and where it came from. So he still has these massive lightning blasts that would have one-shot Kashimo if he didn't have an electric affinity. So even if they take away his main techniques, he still has... So maybe that's why he's not worried. I think there are numerous reasons why Sukuna is not all too concerned about them arriving and why he doesn't immediately one-shot Higuruma at least. Maybe not Itadori, but at least Higuruma. But with that being the case, I love how locked in both of these two are. Like, you see Itadori, he's pursed up, he's clenching right now. He's like, I'm gonna get you, Sukuna. And then we have Higuruma who's like, it's court case time. It's your time, Sukuna. And then you just have Sukuna who's like, woo! Look at who's come to play now. Can't wait to tear the emblem from lip, especially that brat. Like, I know for a fact Sukuna, he's cheesing and creaming. Well, he's not creaming. I hope he's not creaming. But he's cheesing and probably creaming right now. He's ready for a good old time. And we see that in the... I don't know why I keep, like, falling back into saying. But we cut back to a time long before the battle of the demon-infested Shinjuku. And considering the chapters mostly this, I'm shocked Gege even called this a battle of the demon-infested Shinjuku part 16. Because there's barely any battle in the demon-infested Shinjuku for part 16. But with that being the case, we have Kusaka. Now, let me think of a Kusaka. Sora, how you do? Why do I can't do Xigbar's voice either. I'm gonna just absorb the Kingdom Hearts series one day. I'm just gonna take one of my discs. I'm gonna take the 1.5 plus 2.5 remakes and just eat it. It's going to eat it, and hopefully that will give me all the Kingdom Hearts voices. That's how that works, right? But, maybe honestly, I would end up giving him an accent like this. But I don't think this doesn't fit Kusakome at all. He's not from Space Australia. I don't even think it's a good Space Australia accent. But let me say, in the case that Gojo loses, we're going to need a backup plan. For Kenjaku, we'll have to talk about creating an opening for Kotsu to strike. But we'll really need a Kotsu back ASAP. So we're counting on you. So, that I was going to talk about later. Let's talk about it right now. I'm gonna ask that, and I know the immediate answer from the Yuta fans is because Maki's far. She's not the same level of Yuta, so why would they ever send Maki? Because Maki's far. But like, on a logical front, going with the idea that Yuta's stronger than Maki, which I agree. I think overall Yuta's a stronger character with much better matchups than Maki on a grand scheme of the series. I think he even has a better matchup against Kenjaku, verbatim. But considering the plan is to catch Kenjaku off guard and take his head off, and you need Yuta here. Because he's generally more powerful than Maki, has RCT, has a technique, has a domain expansion, is just generally more powerful. And you need him back as quickly as possible. I know Ui has a teleportation technique, so it's kind of a moot point. I don't know why, because the guy really says it, but I know that's a thing. Why not send the one person in your entire crew who not only has no cursed energy, and only their weapon can be sensed. Even that's debatable, whether or not their weapon can actually... Can it be sensed? Because the thing is, Sukuna doesn't sense it. I guess he does sense something, though. I guess he does sense something when Maki arrives. I think. Kinda, sorta. I think so. So, with that being the case, I mean, Jimmy Neutron Brain Blast this one. Why would you not send Maki? Because remember, Soul Stone Katana's all the way up there. I'm not gonna go grab. But let's just take, well, I use this as Yu's katana all the time. So let's just take this. Even though this is a katana, but the Soul Split Katana is not this. But let's take Soul Split Katana. Remember, this fella right here, it doesn't require the person to wield it be directly stronger than whoever they're fighting. It requires their opponent that they're fighting to have a soul. And for the wielder of Soul Split Katana to be able to perceive souls, even the souls of inanimate objects. So if the goal is Takabas distracts Kenjaku and takes the head off, if that's the goal, whoever comes in, why not send the one person who could do it without ever being noticed, should have faster combat speed, but fine, even if you don't think that. I don't think I need to convince you that base Yuta should be slower than Maki when swinging a sword. If I do, I mean, it's fine. I understand, you know, I get it. You know, I'm something of a Yuta slopper myself when I feel like it. But I think if you're going to send anybody, you send the person who can't be sensed, and then you have them decapitate Kenjaku. And then worst comes to worst, if Ui is busy teleporting somebody else, then Maki can just run back. Remember, this is the same person who can run on air. Just leap through that bad boy. And if you think you need a Kotsu back so badly, why would you send him? I don't know. It feels like sending Yuta is a weird setup thing. Like, it feels strange to me that they sent Yuta. Like, I get, like, once again, I mentioned this in the previous review, and I'll say it again. On a narrative sense, based on what was established for Yuta, about him being the one to slaughter Kenjaku, I get why Gege would send Yuta. But in universe, with knowing all that they do, and they've clearly, like, this chapter shows off the fact that they've explained technique. They must have had, like, a whole meeting, or this, and maybe in this meeting itself, they've come in, they've all laid their hands on the table and been like, okay, this is what my technique does. This is how it does it. Here's how we can use it in this very specific circumstance against Sukuna and Kenjaku. They don't even mention Arume in the chapter, which is hilarious. But this is how it comes down. This is how we break it down. So they've done this. So it's likely that Maki has explained how the Soul Split Katana works, even in a general sense. She should know. So why not send her? Why not? Why, in universe, why not? I don't know. It feels weird. It feels strange, and that's why, because people were like, oh, Pencil Man, that's just the Yuta hater you coming out. You want him to be possessed by Kenjaku, you want him to become a Kenjaku victim, it's such as the Yuta. But, I don't know why send Yuta. Seems like a little bit of a risk. Especially with Kenjaku, especially because, like, I'll say this, and this is going to sound, I know all the Maki and Toji fans are going to be like, Pencil, could you say something so blasphemous? I thought you were one of us. But if we had to talk about who's more expendable, who were better sending off and okay with them not immediately coming back or not coming back at all, I'd be a bit more comfortable with sending Maki. Like at least in my mind, because you need Yuta back. You need Yuta, especially considering what he could have gotten over the 1 month time skip if the amps that are implied in this chapter for Yuji or anything. Yuta may have Angel's technique. He may have gotten some better understanding of Limitless, purple or red, or at least bare minimum blue. He could have gotten, I don't know, maybe a little bit of that juicy BM himself. Not baby mama. Blood manipulation, he may have gotten some of that himself. Who knows? Yuta's kit could be massively expanded. It could be much more useful against Sukuna. And don't get me wrong, I still think Maki can be useful against Sukuna, unless you think Sukuna's soul, for some reason, is extra durable, which I say for some reason, but heck, I believe that. I kind of want to see Maki versus Sukuna just to see what would happen if she tried to cut for his weirdly strong soul. But that's the only thing Maki can do. She drew a couple drops of juice out of 15-finger Maguna. Not to talk of true form Sukuna, or even 20-finger Maguna. So, generally speaking, I think it'd be more useful to have Yuta around. If Higuruma fails, Yuta could hypothetically use Angel's technique. If Yuta needs to go in and start running the ones with Sukuna, blood manipulation on top of Angel's technique, on top of, well, Curse Speech is very risky. I don't want you to use Curse Speech on Sukuna. I think they would have rebound. But, heck, even Sky Manipulation, like, I don't know. I think if Yuta manages to sneak Sukuna and slam a thin icebreaker into the back of his dome piece, it'd do a little bit of damage. That's the thing. Yuta has so many more options against Sukuna. So, in universe, I don't get why they would even send Yuta off to begin with. When you have Maki right there, who could do the exact same thing, if not cleaner and smoother, with less risk of getting noticed. Because the thing is, if Kenjaku was put in such a scenario in his battle with Takaba to the point where he couldn't sense Yuta Okosu behind him, he wouldn't have even been able to turn around and perceive Maki at all. Maki would have just appeared there and been, and Kenjaku wouldn't have had the time to turn around and activate the anti-gravity technique. What would have happened is Kenjaku would be like, you know what? You cracked me. Oh, what? I'm on the ground? How did I get on the, is that the, oh, that's the Zenin girl. Like, I think that's what literally would have happened. So I don't get why they send Yuta. But on a narrative level, on a character writing level, I completely understand why they send Yuta. Because that Kenjaku, for all intents and purposes, is Yuta's antagonist. I ain't even gonna argue that. I think he should be more Itadori's antagonist, but he's very specifically Yuta's antagonist. At least that's what Yuta set up in Sendai. And, you know, the whole thing of Kenjaku not respecting Yuta and Yuta being the one to come and defeat him, you know, that's poetic writing right there. It's dramatic irony. So I get on a narrative level why we went for it. But in universe, it feels foolish on every single level. Personally, if I was making the plan, I'd keep it exactly the same. Send Takaba to Ghost Distract. But then I would immediately turn around and be like, hey, Bucko, hey, broski, Maki, go run your numbers up. Go stat pad real quick. And that's just me though. I know people are gonna be like, well, Yuta's stronger. Base Yuta swings harder than Maki does with Soul Silver Katana, and base Yuta's more impressive than Maki, and thusly Soul Silver Katana would be worthless against them because Kenjaku magic mystical nonsense. Whatever. I don't really care. It's just it feels weird. And that's why I'm still convinced that something's going to happen to Yuta. Yuta's not coming back unscathed. At least in my opinion. If he does come back unscathed, I'll eat that. I hate Gojo being wrong. I hate being wrong about Yuta versus Kenjaku in terms of like who would win that fight or how that battle would end up going. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about many things in Jujutsu Kaisen. And I'm wholeheartedly ready to admit that. So right now, I still got all my coins, all my little doubloons in the Kenny main villain pot. And I think something's going to happen either with Takaba's body or Yuta's body relating to Kenjaku. Something's going to happen, and it's going to be merger related, and it's going to be body swapping related. Something's going to happen with that. Whether it be Yuta fighting Kenjaku's new body or the merger starting, Yuta having to fight that, something's going to happen. Yuta's not, I feel like Yuta, he may have a chance to spar with Sukuna, but I don't think he's going to really be it. Especially since Itadori and Higuruma have already started fighting Sukuna. At best, Yuta's going to jump in. Something's going to happen to Yuta. Especially since he doesn't even get a mention this chapter. And that hard cutaway after that ominous statement by Kenjaku feels like setup. If you don't think it feels like setup, I feel like we haven't been reading the same manga. That's just me, though. But of course, back to the actual chapter itself. Sorry, I went on a tangent talking about Yuta, because we mentioned the plan here. We see that Kusakabe explains the issue with Sukuna is, I can't decide on a consistent voice for him. Every time I go to speak for him. That's even my voice? I'll just give him my voice. The issue is, Sukuna, even though it's an all-out battle, we still have to decide who we're sending to the battlefield. What an idiot. All out means everyone's fighting. I'm going first, though. Kashimo. Kashimo, man. I know a whole bunch of people calling Kashimo. I've seen the Kashimo stocks evaporate. Vanish. It's been a month now since Kashimo got. But I've seen him apparate into thin air. But I still really like Kashimo. He's still one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I don't know. I love the interactions here. I love this chapter. Kind of gives me a whiff of what I would have wanted from the month time skip. It can be planning. It can be character bonding, character interactions, character notation, all that. I love this stuff. I don't know. Once again, I love plot as much as the next guy. I really do. A good plot, juicy, spicy, scrumdiddlyumptious. Want to know one of the main reasons I like Blue Lock so much? Because of the characters. One of the main reasons I like JJK so much? Because of the characters. One of the main reasons I still love My Hero Academia, despite the many narrative issues I have with it. Because of the characters. I love characters. And Kashimo, he's just one of my favorites. He's just a silly little fool. You want to talk about, he's calling people idiots. There's a little idiot right here. He's going to go immediately get filleted. He's going to get waffle shimoed. Like, he's going to end up, He's gonna be banished to the Waffle House immediately, and I love that. I just love this little fella. I love his interactions. Everything's fantastic. And to be fair, I do find it funny how he contradicts himself in his own like speech bubble. He's like, yeah, come on now. If we're gonna have an all-out battle, then everyone should be fighting. But then he's immediately like, oh wait, if everyone's gonna fight, then I don't have my turn. So now I'm gonna go first. He, despite being a full-grown man, like a full-grown man plus, he turned on Noon Game Plus. I got Spider-Man PS5 the day it came out. Not Spider-Man. Well, I guess it is technically Spider-Man PS5. But I got Spider-Man 2 day it came out. It didn't come with no New Game Plus. We got Kashimo New Game Plus before we got Spider-Man 2 New Game Plus. And with that being the case, he's living New Game Plus right now. That man was old. He was old. Like, well, maybe not old. Who knows? I'm not sure what the oldest person from his period lived, but presumably he was pushing at least his 60s, 70s most likely. He was wrinkled up. He was fighting still though, so he's definitely very impressive. But he's like an adult. He's likely, looking at the rest of the cast and crew, the only, if you think Choso was conscious the entire time, well, Angel would likely be older, but I think like he's top 3 oldest in the room, and he may be number 2. So, the fact that he's so childish just adds to his character appeal for me. I love Kashimo. But we see that Kusakabe is like, wow, let me level you real quick. Am I giving Kusakabe this voice? I think I'm going to give him this voice. I don't want to give him my voice. Giving him my voice sounds way too generic. And just what would be the... And I cannot read to save my life. And just what would be the point of sending someone out if they're just going to get slain and they can't even get us an opening? Take our Miwa here, for example. She was lacking in power to begin with, and when she went and made a binding vow to never sing a sword in Shibuya, well, she became genuinely useless Miwa. Gege is cool. Gege is cool. Personally, love Broken Run. Happy Man hit 100K recently. Shouts to the main man. I do want to react to some of his videos. I need to actually sit down. I haven't watched some of his videos. Like, a lot of his recent versus battle videos, I think the only one I've watched as of recent was, like, I saw Nanami versus Hanami, and I was like, why was that even a fight? But, he did that with 6. But, one of my things is, I never bought into the Miwa hype. The only thing, I'll admit, there was a whiff and a taste of it. When she showed up in Sendai towards the end, I was like, right, that was something that did catch my attention, but I never necessarily bought the Miwa hype. All right, I'll admit, I never really did. But to do her this dirty, to the point where she just can't fight with her main fighting style anymore off a binding mouse she made in her own dome piece, like, dog, what? Like, I know we've never. Like, we know just making a binding vow is as simple as saying, I'll make a binding vow with you. It's not like, swearing on the river Styx from the Percy Jackson series where you have to, like, do a whole specific oath or anything like that. Or isn't even, like, then again, I don't remember. Have we seen, like, specific contracts being made in Hunter? Like, we know Gon, but he did a very similar thing in Hunter x Hunter with that whole thing. But, like, dog, really? Miwa can't even wield a katana anymore? Really? We're doing her like that? Really? Come on. Like, it's not like I expected her to do anything, but darn. And, like, having Kusakabe use her as an example of useless people, even though he's the person who scouted her and was her mentor. Dog, really? Like, Kusakabe, why are you punching down? That's the big thing. Like, why are you punching down, bro? On your own student? Like, there's so many other people here you could have used as an example. What's Momo doing here? Punch down on Momo. Dog. Or I think that's Nita here. Punch on Nita. What's the, like, come on now. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. I don't know why Gege is so cruel to his character. And I know, so I've seen the copium already. People are like, oh, Mifa's. I haven't touched Breath of the Wild in a hot minute. Why did I say Mifa? I've been consuming a lot of Tears of the Kingdom content, though. And by Tears of the Kingdom content, it's like being Tears of the Kingdom complaint content. So, do with that one what you will. But, with that being the case, man, I know a lot of people are, like, hoping that Miwa's gonna, like, she's gonna get a benefit from this binding vow, and she's gonna get, like, legally speaking, she could, like, wordsmith it and be like, well, I did say I'd never swing a katana again. No one said anything about a dagger, or no one said anything about Gladius or anything like that. Like, I know people have been huffing that. And before she's like, no one said anything about a keyblade. She's just gonna randomly show up with Ultima Weapon and be like, Sukuna, this is what you've been waiting for. I know a bunch of like Miwa's the strongest fans out there. They've been waiting for her to just drop Ultimate Weapon, go into Ultimate form, and just take care of the entire series. Don't worry, Miwa's suppressing her full power, and that's what she's really gonna do. But being real with y'all, if Yuki Tsukumo couldn't get a dub in her first real fight, in her only fight in the entire series, like I guess you can call her intervention at Shibuya a fight. If she wasn't gonna get a dub, Miwa's not gonna get a dub. Like, come on. Miwa fans, I'm sorry for y'all. And the thing is, right, I get this is just Miwa's character at this point, but I'm sad that she doesn't even, like, she just says, Kenjaku stop that swing with his bare hands, though. Tee! You literally can't feed your family anymore. You don't know how to fight in any other way, Miwa. I know the family's gonna get cooked regardless. Quite literally cooked if her roommate's still alive after Sukuna does the deed. Maybe with her roommate. But with that being the case, Miwa, dog. This is something to laugh about. I guess she probably had time to cope with it already. But, that sucks so badly. That is horrible. But, speaking of things that are horrible, we see that Kusakabe brings up a fact that isn't as horrible. With regard to the merger with Tengen-sama, I have a feeling that we can use cursed energy to prevent ourselves from being included. Even with... Chair, can you stop? Even if Sukuna and Kenjaku get their way, I don't think it's impossible to survive the merger when the resulting monster begins wreaking havoc on the world. Though, I do expect Kenjaku to immediately hunt down the remaining players. So, that is something that I somehow failed to mention despite how much I've been hyping up the merger and its possibility and why I think it's pretty much guaranteed to happen, even with Kenjaku decapitated on the floor. I was wondering how they weren't going to get included, right? I could understand if maybe like non-Culling Games players were not included, like maybe Kusakabe himself, or... That's about it. I think everyone else... Well, Kirara, she stayed out of the Culling Game. And Momo, I'm not sure if she was ever in any of the barriers or anything like that. Actually, no. She did show up towards the end of Hikari's colony. So she was in a barrier. So I thought maybe something like that would work. But no, you can just use Curse Energy to resist it. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Because if everyone kind of just got low diffs and absorbed by the merger, that kind of be boring. So I'm fine with the idea that the merger only absorbs people who do not know how to control their cursed energy. Or people who have no cursed energy at all, like Maki, presumably. So I'm fine with that. I think that's a good way to keep the cast around to fight the merger. But with that being the case, can we talk about how much I love this trio, bro? Why, like, okay, Chair, we're gonna have a conversation right now. Stop. Stop it. Darn you. Chill out. I'll maybe replace you. I will. Maybe I do need to. But I don't want to do it. Don't make me. I love you, Chair. Don't make me do this. But with that being the case, I love this trio right here. Kashima, Hikari, and Kirara. It tickles a deep part of my soul. Like, you know, people always describe that one thing that scratches a particular itch in the back of their brain that they just really, really like the feeling of. That's me. That's me with this trio right here. I love it. There's no reason for me to love it. There's no reason I should heap oogles and boogles of praise all over it. But I love this. I just like the fact that Kashimo, when you break him down to brass tacks, he respects Hikari enough that he's the only person he's actually willing to associate with. Like, look at Higuruma. Higuruma doesn't associate himself with anybody. He's away from the second year trio right here. He's away from the Blood Brothers right here. Even Hana's technically sitting with the Blood Brothers, which is close enough to Megumi, I bet, in Hana's mind. You even have, obviously, you have the two Kyoto girls sitting with each other. Well, actually, no. Momo, because this is Miwa. So I'm assuming this is Nita. And then this would be Momo. So you have that. Talk about not being here is kind of weird. I guess they didn't want to include him in the discussion. I don't know. That feels weird, though. Maybe that's talk about. But you even have the Kyoto girls sitting together. And, you know, once again, he lost Nanami, but at least he's sitting with people. But Kashimo, the kind of character you'd think would be so arrogant they wouldn't associate with anybody, no. Since in his mind, he lost to Hikari in that fight, he wants to associate with Hikari. He's posted up next to him in particular, leaned up on a wall with him, arms crossed. And him and Hikari just genuinely hang out. Man, like, I get why we didn't get to see the time skip. The time skip would spoil a whole bunch of stuff, I suppose, for the 1 month time skip between Gojo's release and Gojo's end, which is the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. But man, I really wish we got to see more character interactions. One of my favorite things about series like Blue Lock, and my favorite things about series like Four Knights, and my favorite things about series like even Black Clover. I say even Black Clover, like that's not one of the main appeals of the story. But I love the character interactions we get. I love that. And sure, Gege implies a lot of things. Even with just the seat positioning, he implies a whole bunch or reinforces ideas that are already there. But, man, I really wish we got... And I guess, legally speaking, it would be filler, right? Like, Gege is very strict with his pacing. So I get why Gege does include the filler, quote-unquote, of showing us character interactions. But, man, it would have been so nice to see these characters get more than, like, a passing phrase or two with each other. Or just sitting next to each other. I really wish we got to see more of these characters, more of these trios, more of these interactions, but alas, I suppose it was never meant to be. However, we do get to see that with this being the case, Kusakabe believes no matter how this plays out, we'll at least have a few days. Even if Sukuna is the only one left of those two standing. Which is true. Sukuna most likely. The only issue is, and the reason why they want to press Sukuna so quickly, is that if he recovers, they're never beating him. After they lose their big weakening cards of both Kashimo and Gojo, if Sukuna escapes, they're cooked. But right now, even if Kenjaku gets cooked, and they just have to deal with Sukuna, Sukuna's passive enough, he's not active enough, that they could probably strategize against them for a while keep trying to chip him down from far away. However, we do get to see that a certain man stands and makes a declaration. I'm sorry, but I'll have to abstain from participating. I don't think I'll be of any assistance. I like to watch over my family, if even for a little while. I intend to take them with me and flee overseas. I'm very... Okay, got it. No worries. This isn't some public execution. We don't want to hear everybody's explanations. Only the ones who will be useful in this fight are those crazy enough to try. So, Kamo's leaving. This is a good I'm not sure if this is something that Gege always planned, or just his editor told him one day, dude, you keep forgetting to draw Kamo. But then again, his editor's not told him, dude, you keep forgetting to draw Toji. And not Toji. Gege never forgets to draw Toji. Todo. Like, Todo, where is he? Where is he? Where's my brother? Where has he gone? Because, dog, what's Angel doing here? I get she has years of combat experience, but, dog, like, if Hana's gonna sit around with one arm and do nothing but spectate, Todo could be here with one arm and do nothing but spectate. Come on now, if Miwa was here, you're telling me Miwa would come here, but Todo wouldn't? Dog. Where's my boy, man? I feel like Gege just forgot about him. Just like he forgot about Nobara. Well, then again, he mentioned Nobara relatively recently, like a few months back. But just like Nobara hasn't gotten a proper mention or confirmation of her location, I feel like Todo's the same thing, but even worse. Like Todo hasn't even been name dropped since he disappeared. Like put that in the context. Todo hasn't appeared since the early 100s. He's been gone. One of the most important characters for Itadori's development, and the reason Itadori even beat Mahito. Gone. Not mentioned. Like 4 years now. It hurts. It hurts me. Okay, when will you learn? Don't your actions have consequences? Like dog. It hurts me so much that my boy ain't here. However, Kamo not being here, I feel like this is Gege kind of like going back and rectifying, oh yeah, I forgot to draw Kamo in all these reaction shots. Whoops, he's overseas. So that's fine by me. A lot of people are assuming that maybe Kamo ended up becoming a Kenjaku victim. And hey, since he's overseas, I actually wouldn't be too mad about that. But I don't know, I feel like it's just writing Kamo out the narrative. And kind of completing his little character journey of him kind of giving into his own desires and wants and like understanding himself better and his relation and ties to his family and his name and how little he actually cares about the Kamo clan and how he's just going to escape with his mom and likely little brother. I think that's sweet. I like that a lot. And I do like that Kusakabe's like, hey, broski, I ain't gonna knock you out, dog. I got the plane ticket right behind you. They all said, you was in Africa. I'm gonna be in Africa soon enough. Don't you worry about that. I'm gonna dip right after making this plan. But with that being the case, we get pretty much confirmation that Yuji got blood manipulation. Because he says, oh, thanks for teaching me all that stuff, senpai. You really helped. Because Choso sucks at teaching. Once again, for some reason, characters in this chapter, they just load up the shoddy. Boom. Then another one. Boom. And then another one. Boom. They're just firing on all cylinders at each other. Like, do you guys not like each other? do you just not enjoy each other's company or something? Why are you firing like that? No one, Yuji. Bro, you didn't have to add in that second part. You can say thanks to Kamo without stabbing Choso in the face when he's right next to you. Come on, now that's a crime too. Judge Man. Hold on. Domain expansion, deadly sentencing. Judge Man. We got to charge Itadori Yuji for another crime. Give him this super DP. And I'm not talking about a Dragon Punch. But with that being the case, Kamo taught Yuji blood manipulation. And I'll be real. Let me level with it. Let me defend Choso and indirectly defend and support Kamo and Itadori. Because at first I was shocked that Choso wasn't the one to teach Yuji blood manipulation stuff. But we got to remember, it doesn't seem like Yuji has gotten reverse curse technique. In that one special image we saw and the way we see him in this chapter, he has his ear like covered with some piece of plastic and his finger's still missing. So he doesn't have RCT or anything like that still. And thusly, unlike Choso, who's half human, half cursed, which Yuji isn't, I keep hearing people call Yuji a DPW. He's not. I don't know where y'all got, like, Kenjaku just gave birth to him. Like carried him for 9 months and everything. Gave him the nutrients and all that. Like, Itadori's a natural dude. Like, he's not a DPW. He's not like a spoiler situation from another series that I talked about. So, he's not a death painting. He's not. But, with that being the case, Choso is. So, thusly, you have things that Choso can do that Itadori can never do. Like, what he did against Naoya to defeat Naoya, what he does with just creating a whole bunch of juice all at once, all the stuff like that. The only thing that Choso could really teach Yuji is basic applications of blood manipulation, so why not do that with Kamo already? And also maybe a better application of flowing red scale, because Yuji should have a decent understanding and application of flowing red scale, because it's just controlling the blood inside your body versus blood outside your body. That's fine. So with that being the case, we see that Kamo's like, oh, is that so? Choso, you can claim you're the stronger blood manipulation user, but not only do you have worse feats than me, speed-wise, but also, you can't even teach. Nah, but obviously Kamo's like, oh, wow, shocking. But we do see that Kusakabe brings up a very interesting fact, and a fact that does make sense. Those of you who use reverse curse technique, those of you who want to perish, and those of you who think you don't care about perishing, anyone who doesn't fall into those three groups is either on the bench or providing support. So, essentially, any of the people who are steeled for the end, that's a Fire Force reference, steeled for the end, yeah, they can throw themselves out there. Go ahead. We'll take all the warm bodies we can get. However, if you aren't so sure about all that, if you ain't exactly steeled, you're gonna have to be there. But you're gonna be on the bench. You're gonna be watching and you're gonna provide support. So presumably this is characters like Ui, characters like Kirara, characters like, I guess arguably Mei, but Mei's been pretty active in this battle, and we'll see she's even more active later. Like, those characters who have things to live for, they can be there, they can watch if they don't want to just run like Kamo's doing. But realistically, they're gonna be on deck. Though I do think that Shoko counts as that too, because she'll be playing support. And we see that with that being the case, with the roles of everybody established, Higuruma speaks up. Hold on, me. I'm like some ice cold water. Do you drink water today? Drink some water. Go flush your system. Trust me. Drink water. But you see that Higuruma says, I'll go out after Kashima. My curse technique can confiscate Sukuna's. And this is where we get into the big complications. I'm going to make a whole video talking about it, but let's get into it. We get into the idea of confiscation. Even Itadori starts to sweat at that. And once again, since I just love Kashima, I love this, once again, this trio right here. I love this trio. Kashima's like, you assuming that I'm going to lose is really ticking me off. Oh, hindsight, must you be so 2020? Kashima Hajime, bro. Kashima Hajime. You're such a funny little fella. You're such a goofy little gal. Oh, look. I love his face. He's such a character. I love him. I love him so much. But once again, I guess Kashima's curse energy trait isn't active all the time, because Base Sakari just grabs him. He's like, dude, it's just hypothetical, man. Besides, we're thankful for letting you have Gojo-sensei take a crack at it first. And I'm still not okay with that either. So, Kashimo wasn't actually fine with Gojo going. Once again, I'm not sure what scenario I want. I'm not sure if I want Kashimo to have just acquiesced because Akari, someone he respects, was like, hey, let my old sensei go first. Trust me, you can watch him cook and then you'll get your turn. No problem, broski. And then Kashimo was like, oh, you modern dayers, fine, whatever, I'll wait. And then he walked over to a corner, crossed his arms, and sat down in a chair mad. Or I want the idea that whether it be Gojo, whether it be Akari, whether it be Yuta himself, if Kashimo if they beat Kashimo into submission again, and be like, hey, we need to let Gojo go first. And Kashimo was like, what's so good about this Gojo guy anyway? And we got like a quick Gojo versus Kashimo. Something like that. Or something like that. Because once again, the month time skip. And it's so many beautiful things that we could have seen there, such as training, character interactions, all stuff like that. But yeah, he was never going to give that to us. He never gave us time skip info. But with it being the case, well, he gives us time skip info after the fact, which is what we're getting now. But with that being the case, I do like this trio once again. I like how Akari's comforting Kashimo, trying to keep him in line. Like how Kirara watches over her man, or their man, specifically, and and is just associated with Kashimo and Akari. Just such a W trio. Especially considering these two in particular, Kirara and Akari, are actually kind of lacking the trio dynamic that every other grade has. Like, the second year's, the trio is, for realistic purposes, Yuta, Maki, and Inumaki. Panda doesn't count. He doesn't have rights. He's not a human. He never will be. He's a waste of space. And he is disgusting. I want you to know that. I want you to realize that. I want you to embrace that fact. He's worthless. He always has been and he always will be. Panda, you disgust me. But, with it being the case, you had that trio over there for the second years. Plus the filth. And then for the first years, you had very emphasis on past tense. You had Itadori, Nobara, and Megumi. But the third years was the only group that didn't really have that. It was just Kirara and Hikari. But with Kashimo there, you kind of complete the trio, and I like it a whole lot. Trios are great. In a story I'm writing, I went with a 4-man squad, but that's mainly because I didn't want to reuse the trio dynamic, and I wanted to balance it out a bit more. But that's me. I'm not even going to deny. Like, there's a reason you see groups of 3 everywhere. Like, literally everywhere. Like, in ancient mythology to modern storytelling, everywhere. In human history, 3 is just a really nice number. So, I get it. But we see that Kashimo doesn't even get acknowledged here. As Higuruma says, if he's sentenced to death, I can fight Sukuna with the executioner's sword. And Kusakabe responds, a sword that kills with a single swing. It'd be a big help. But even you can't be sure whether or not the verdict will be confiscation or death penalty, right? So, this is good. Once again, like I mentioned before, and why I was complaining about why they sent Yuta instead of Magi, I don't know. We do know that they've explained everybody's techniques to each other. Now they're just planning, likely after laying the groundwork. And I'll admit, Higuruma, dog, I get you can probably get a whole bunch of quality training with all the people here, and you're probably Himothy. And he proves to be Himothy. He may be stronger than Kashimo with his 1 feet in this chapter. But with that being the case, Higuruma, bro, you can fight Sukuna with the executioner's sword. I think you should, well, he did it, basically he did it. But I think you should have immediately spawned in and dropped domain and just gone for confiscation. The death penalty is a bonus. I think you getting close to Sukuna, like, being real with you, the main plan, if I was playing this out, first things first, Maki's going after Kenjaku. Obviously. Maki's going after Kenjaku, and then hopefully Ui can get her back real quick so she can help with the support, or or she just runs back herself. Fine. Just go the distance and just come back at your own pace. Perfectly fast, but at your own pace. But the second thing I'd do, I'd have, ironically enough, this may sound crazy, and I know people are going to be like, Pencilman, what do you mean? If I'm trying to win, if I'm trying to beat Sukuna, King of Curses Sukuna, I'm not sending Gojo first. I'm going to, you know what? I'd use Gojo's fake out. That's what I would do. Gojo firing off the 200% Hollow Purple as an opener is fantastic. But then I'd have Ui teleport Higuruma right next to Meguna and immediately open domain. Get him in deadly sentencing right there and then. Because if you take, I don't think it's too bold a claim to make, but Mahoraga wouldn't be adapted at that point to the domain. So even if Sukuna were to attempt to summon him, that'd also be an act of violence. So he wouldn't be able to use Mahoraga to get out of it. If Meguna didn't have his curse technique, he's not beating Gojo. I know that's it's such a startling claim to make, but if just confiscation. Teleport Higuruma in before Gojo starts fighting, or right after the 200% Hollow Purple. Have Higuruma just get confiscation. It can be over nothing. Just get Sukuna proven guilty and get confiscation. If Itadori could be confiscated off of what? Going into a pachinko shop as a minor? If he could get confiscated off of that, I think any of Sukuna's crimes, Higuruma could catch him guilty for. Boom. Get confiscation, have Uyui teleport in, or have Gojo teleport in, immediately start fighting Maguna after that, and have Higuruma escape. Because the main thing is, we don't know what happens if Higuruma dies after something's been confiscated. We don't know if Judge Man permanently takes the confiscation with him, if well, no, we presume it should go like this, since Judge Man is still a part of Higuruma's technique. The moment Higuruma gets cooked, Judge Man should be cooked too. So, obviously, Higuruma staying and fighting Sukuna isn't actually the smartest play here. You should remove Higuruma. Take him to Malaysia. If Nanami couldn't get there, and take Nanami Light and Higuruma and take him to Malaysia. Get him as far away from Sukuna as possible, because as long as his technique doesn't have some sort of effective range limit, just keeping Sukuna confiscated will be good enough. The Executioner Sword is a bonus, but I genuinely don't think they should risk what should be their ultimate trump card against Sukuna. But yeah, new plan, send Maki after Big Jaku, have her come back at her own leisure, but before any of that, have Sukuna get confiscated by Higuruma at the start of the fight before he even fights Gojo. Have Gojo fight, and if Gojo somehow still loses with his dumb behind self, then have Kashimo fight, then have the new plan that's established in this chapter. But obviously, you know, Gojo probably didn't want that, so whatever. But we do see that the next thing is brought up, as Itadori explains. Actually, that depends on which crimes Judge Man charges Sukuna with. You don't have any say in that, do you, Higuruma? And we see Higuruma answer honestly, none. Sukuna and I swapped 3 times. At my high school, the detention center, and at Shibuya. He caused a ton of casualties at both the detention center and Shibuya, and in the detention center and in Shibuya. And since swapping to Fushiguro's body, he's probably doing whatever he pleases. I think most of what he's doing has been pretty serious. There's a pretty high chance that Judge Man prosecutes a crime that would just be punishable by death. But then Higuruma comes in and is like, honestly, it's hard to say. If we summarize our current knowledge of Sukuna's actions, at Itadori's high school, bodily harm against Itadori by means of taking over his body, and number 2, the attempted slaughter of Satoru Gojo. Now, I do want to say this, a lot of people have been using this to say, oh, it's attempted, Gojo's still alive. That was back at Itadori's high school, when he did try to execute Satoru Gojo. I remember, this is very specifically before the fight even happens. They aren't planning this, like, live. No, this is before the battle between Gojo and Sukuna even begins. So, like, he's cooked, you know. He's genuinely cooked. But with that being the case, number 2, at the detention center, the murder of Itadori Yuji. Since he came back to life, I suppose it'd only be attempted slaughter. And 2, the attempted slaughter of Fushiguro Megami. And number 3, Shibuya. Number 1, slaughter of 2 high school-aged curse users. 2, attempted mass slaughter of citizens of Shibuya. Number 3, slaughter of a curse user with a side ponytail. And number 4, arson of residential buildings. So, especially considering what's going to be established here, this actually isn't enough. And I find it so funny that his domain expansion is considered an attempt at mass slaughter, but isn't actually mass slaughter itself because he missed a couple. He missed a few, so of course it doesn't count. I don't know why, that just tickled my funny bone. In the live reaction, you check it over on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, or become a member for the channel for as low as $3 a month. Check it out. You get that and early content. But with that being the case, we see that technically Sukuna's crimes, I mean, they're numerous and they're high level, but that's only the major ones. We see that Higuruma brings up, which brings us to the takeover of Fushiguro Megami's body. Depending on Fushiguro Megami's status, the charge could be bodily harm, attempted slaughter, or the theft of a slaughtered body. And we see that Itadori's like, the detention center was much worse than that. And we see that Higuruma says, Sukuna's fingers. It's difficult to pin the blame on Sukuna for harm caused by cursed objects. Sukuna is at fault, albeit indirectly. I wouldn't call it aiding and abetting. In that same vein, the case of Yoshino Junpei's mother is just as tricky. So, essentially think of it as like, how do I put this? Say you had a valuable possession, right? Like let's say you just had a bar of gold, right? And someone else had that bar of gold that's from you, and someone else executed them for it. Technically speaking, the person who you left the bar of gold with wouldn't have perished if they didn't have the bar of gold that you gave them. So in a roundabout way, it is your fault. But at the same time, there's no way you get charged in court for that. If you left a possession with somebody and then somebody else came in and slayed that person for that possession, unless the possession itself was inherently illegal, there's no way you could get charged for that. You'd be chalked up to, oh, sorry, these things happen like that. So yeah, legally speaking, his fingers, despite the many people who have slaughtered or been slaughtered or have suffered because of them, not legally binding. And I even get that one. I get that myself with no lawyer degree at all. I unfortunately don't have the wheel above my head adapting to the Japanese penal code. But even I can realize that that's not the case. But I do like how Itadori feels guilty for Junpei and his family all this time later. But once again, does he feel guilty for Todo? You know the last time we seen Junpei even mentioned? Before Todo left. Where's Todo? Where's Todo? Please, I need Todo back. And I think someone mentioned in the comment section of last week's review that Yuta's positioning was just like a compositioning error. But I'm not sure. I never found a source for that. If y'all know the source of the Kenjaku situation, long story short, if you don't remember from last review, my biggest issue with Kenjaku versus Yuta and why kind of iffy on whether or not it's a speed blitz or some weird stuff was going on with Takaba suppressing him or weird things, is that Yuta and Kenjaku literally switch positions despite there being no motion lines on Yuta's legs, and he's still squatted down when he decapitates Kenjaku. It feels weird because Yuta is somehow next to Takaba, even though Kenjaku was next to Takaba, and Kenjaku only turned around. He didn't take any steps forward. So if someone can find me the source of Gege admitting that was just like a composition error, feel free to let me know. I mean, it doesn't really matter all too much. Kenjaku's decapitated. It won't change anything. Well, it changes on how high Yuta goes in base specifically. Like full power Yuta is different, but in base. But with that being the case, we see that it's apparently kind of, I don't know. It feels weird to me. Once again, I don't know the full laws of my own area, but I feel like this is just completely different. Higuruman explains, as for the sentencing. English. As for the sentencing rate, heavens above, as for the sentencing rates for slaughter, the slaughter of a single person usually results in imprisonment with hard labor for 10 to 15 years. What? So you're telling me if someone rolls over to Japan, drops somebody, straight up, like, with this treasure I summon somebody, and it's only one person, you only get 10 to 15 years? And I say only 10 to 15 years. Like, 10 to 15 years isn't a decade and a half. But, like, I thought you just got life. Because you took a life. Like, at bare minimum, you get life. Or at least 30 years. Only 10 to 30. Like, that means if someone were to pull up to Japan, I forget what the legal age of adulthood is over there, but 18. If someone pulled up to Japan at 18, off somebody, in the most generous scenario, they'd be out before they're 30. It's a least generous scenario, according to Higuruman, they'd be out by 33. They already, like, I believe the prime in a person's life is, like, physically at least, the prime in a person's life is, like, late 20s, early to mid 30s, and then you start to decline from there. It's like, no. What do you mean? Is that really that bad? I don't know. I'm shocked that it feels like it's so little to me, but maybe I just expect too much value with human lives, I guess. But with it being the case, we see that once you get to two people, you see one person will let you slide 10, 15 years. Two people, though, yeah, it's life in prison or taking your own life. And for the murder of 3 or more, the DP, the death penalty, yeah, that's locked in. You're gonna get that, which is good. So Sukuna only has one crime where he can guarantee to get it. That sounds so weird, but think about it. All of his crimes, any attempted murder, doesn't even matter. If actual slaughter can only get you 10 to 15 years, not a life sentence, nowhere near DP, a lot of Sukuna's major crimes of taking over bodies or attempting slaughter of people, not too much, not too crazy now. So he's good on that. The only thing out of Sukuna's known crimes that they can specifically guarantee the DP on is the mass slaughter in Shibuya. That's it. And even then, as they'll mention, that cannot be it. There are complications even within that, based on how his technique works. So they say it's a 30% chance to get the DP, but based on this understanding of the rules of slaughter, it's like a 1 in who knows how many. It may be like a 1% chance, being real with you. Because, I mean, I guess if you include the 2 people and above, it goes crazy. Then you have like Nanako and Mimiko and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's mainly just the mass slaughter. But we see that Higuruma explains, Sukuna has repeatedly demonstrated cruelty, misconduct, causing significant social harm for his own self-interest. This would imply that he cannot be rehabilitated into our society. According to the Nagayama standard, this would lead to the death penalty. If it's a normal trial, that is. Naga, huh? Miwa, don't do this. Don't embarrass yourself even more. But I love how once the lawyer talk started, Maki, like look at Maki up here. Wait, where's the group shot? Maki up here, you know, she's locked in, she's engaged, they're talking about the plan, they're talking about sending her man off to risk his life, and, you know, all that good stuff when she knows it should be her. I'm sad she didn't speak up here. But then the moment all the lawyer talk comes out, she's just like, this nonsense again. Am I gonna have to go on trial for the slaughter of the Zenin clan? I still haven't told them. I'll be fine. But with that being the case, I love the little change in expression here. And we see that Kusakabe actually knows his lawyer stuff. He knows the law system. Look at you, Kusakabe. I don't know. I don't like... I've been told in the past that I make a good lawyer, but like in terms of actual study, I've done none of it. I don't know much about the laws. I just know basic stuff. So it's interesting that Kusakabe is so well studied. He says, I see. And B was like, huh? Teach, you capping, ain't you? You know what he's talking about, Kusakabe-san? It's weird that she calls him Kusakabe-san and not Sensei. I guess when Jujutsu Society falls apart, all titles do too. But we see that Kusakabe is like, oh, you really underestimate me, huh? And to be fair, I underestimated him too, but he does know what he's talking about. As he says, in a normal trial, if you take all its crimes into account, Sukuna would be executed. Simple as that. But Higuruma's technique prosecutes each charge one by one. If you look at the charges just listed, by my count, less than 30% of them would get him the DP. Another problem is if each of the major crimes is attached to a number of minor ones. Hypothetically, if you poked somebody, you'd be charged with attempted slaughter and bodily harm. But, technically speaking, you also tore the victim's clothes, so property damage would be included too. So yeah, that's a big part that goes unmentioned, because typically in all the popular cases you always hear about the big ones, the big juicy crimes. But yeah, technically, Sukuna could be caught for arson, for property damage of individual buildings, for destruction of property, destruction of clothes. Like, there's a lot of leeway that Sukuna could get by the nature of how Judgment works. This is a weird way to draw a hoodie. But, actually, no. That's where the slice is. So, never mind. Makes sense. But we see that Higuruma says, it's quite possible that if we were to look into Sukuna's massacre in Shibuya, Judgment may choose to prosecute him for property damage or breaking and entering instead. In that case, securing the DP sentencing will be tough. Yeah. And like I said, the only one that hard 100% guarantees the DP is the massacre in Shibuya. That's it. That's the only one. Because everything else is 2 or less. Haruto was a one-time incident. Nanako and Mimiko count as 2, I guess. Everything else is attempted. Sukuna's done nothing wrong. Legally speaking, he only has one crime that they know of that he can be explicitly charged for that will guarantee get them the DP. And that's if and only if they get that one. There's a high likelihood that everything else he gets, he could write off and just get confiscation, no DP. But I still think confiscation is more than good enough. However, we do get to see that Itadori says, I can see that happening. Judgment even brought up me playing pachinko as a minor. Right, Sukuna could be charged with Itadori's petty crimes due to having been incarnated in his body. And that's the big thing with Megami, right? Like, even though Sukuna has now fully incarnated, he is once again a creature of creatures. He's still Megami, legally speaking. The Culling Games recognizes him as Megami Fushiguro. So that could very likely mean that Bro could get off scot-free in terms of his own crimes because he's Megami. So he'd be charged for Megami's crimes. Just like Itadori wasn't charged for the crimes he was charged for a crime that Sukuna committed while he was in control of the body. But Judgment Man only recognized the body, and since the body and the soul are kind of the same thing, Judgment only recognized the body / soul that existed, which would be Itadori. Thusly, I could see Sukuna not being charged for any of Sukuna's crimes. He's Megumi Fushiguro. And that's why I think they may have played themselves. At the end of the chapter, there's a little something that happens. And I think they may have played themselves by doing this and not immediately just gambling it, like taking the random roll, like throwing the dice again, essentially. Because they locked themselves into a very specific scenario. And that may have not been the brightest idea. But with that being the case, we do get to see that it gets even more complicated. As someone critiques Itadori for going and doing the stuff that he does. Higuruma mentions that what's even bigger issue is the crimes from 1,000 years ago. And we see that Kusakabe asks, wouldn't that fall under the statute of limitations? And we get this whole complicated explanation. I ain't reading all that. It's a nice, funny little joke, but I ain't reading all that. The long story short of this, breaking it down, I do love this interaction. This is another trio right here that I would love to see more of. But the issue is, right, Sukuna may not be liable, or he may be liable, or something in between. Higuruma's law system is based on his own understanding of it, but he has understanding of multiple law systems. So how Judgment works is kind of a toss-up. Do statute of limitations apply? We know Judgment doesn't follow conventional trial format, because it takes the charges one by one, doesn't stack all the charges of the individual. So the likelihood of Sukuna's original crimes being liable or viable, it's kind of a toss-up. And when they need things to not be a toss-up, they need it to be that he at least gets confiscated. It's very, very dangerous. And we do get to see that the reason that Itadori is so confused and why he has this long talk is like, come on now, which is it? And even Higuruma himself doesn't know. It's weird. And with that being the case, they don't even know if Sukuna can count, because based on this, if the offender is abroad, the progression of the statute of limitations is halted. Depending on how Sukuna operated prior to incarnation, there may not be a statute of limitations, even under the modern set of laws. And Hikari realizes, oh, so it's like if it takes the time he wasn't incarnated and counts that as being abroad? Precisely. So essentially, the statute of limitations may work, because despite him being gone for 1,000 years ago, since he was abroad, legally speaking, he wasn't himself for 1,000 years, technically Sukuna could be like 40. Maybe even 42, however long you think he was actually alive in his original life before he achieved his Deifix-like state. So that's another thing about the statute of limitations. And with that being the case, Judgment, at the end of the day, is still based on Higuruma, his soul and his curse technique. And thusly, if Higuruma thinks it's possible, it's very likely that Judgment will too. There's the gamble there again. And we see that there is some contention. As Kusakabe says, which means that taking into account Sukuna's crimes from 1,000 years ago, Judgment's discretion, and Sukuna's innumerable crimes, both big and small, the chances that Judgment lands a charge that gives a clear-cut DC or DP are extremely low. And Hikari even points out, even with a guilty verdict leading to confiscation, I'm just grateful you're able to do something. Which is true. It is very true. Sukuna being confiscated, while he still has Kamutoke now, which is gonna suck for them, it's still much better than having his base technique. His base technique is way better than Kamutoke. And we see that Higuruma mentions, still, I'm not sure if both techniques will be confiscated. I never trialed somebody with multiple abilities before. And that's true. I know a lot of people are writing off the fact that Sukuna has Tenshao's technique. Oh, it's gone. It's worthless at this point. But we don't know that. We really don't know that. Remember when everyone believed that the Space Slash was a one-time thing? And by everyone, I mean some people. I didn't think so. I knew the Space Slash was a normal thing. But I remember how a lot of people were like, oh, that evolved Dismantle Slash is going to be hard to do, or he won't be able to do it again. It's going to be difficult. And then he immediately whipped it out. Again. Right on Kashibo. Like, no hesitation. Like, it took 2 chapters for him to just whip it out again. Obviously, I don't think it's good to assume anything with Sukuna and his abilities. So thusly, him still being in Megumi's body, legally speaking, it's entirely possible he still has his technique. So thusly, Higuruma taking away anything at all would be viable, but preferably they'd want to take away Shrine. And we see that Kusakabe does agree with Hikari, like, dude, no matter what, it's a huge help. And we see that Itadori realizes that, wait a minute, I think I may have a way to ensure Sukuna gets sentenced to death. And we cut back to the battle itself, to the current time. Though, I think they may have played themselves. I'll get into what I think they may have played themselves in a second. But we see that Mei Mei goes in for not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not even 5, but 6 whole bird strikes. Omega bird strikes. And we see Sukuna grin, but he's like, you know, no one survived this except for Satoru Gojo. Let me immediately comes and he immediately strikes them with lightning. He doesn't even allow the birds to get close enough. And hey, I'm not okay. I need y'all to hear me out. I need y'all to hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. I'm not saying that Sukuna would have taken damage. But I'm also not saying that Sukuna wouldn't have taken damage. Because why would he block him? If they're just far, if they're just going to ping right off of him, why would he destroy him? Why didn't he just face tank him, huh? Huh? I'm just saying, it seems entirely possible that Bird Strike could have been viable. Could have been viable. And this isn't even just me headcanon it. Sukuna not only explicitly goes out of his way to attack them, as you see, he strikes all the birds with Kamatoke's lightning. But even Mei Mei points out, as the poor bird gets cooked. Which, once again, very impressive. These birds are super impressive. Like, I don't know what kind of, I don't know where she gets her crows from. They must be like supreme bred or something, because they are extremely bulky. Mei Mei even points out, Gojo-kun, Kenjaku, and now Sukuna. I guess my power doesn't faze these complete monsters. That said, they all opted to dodge. So doesn't that say something about if it were to land? So, that is true. Unfortunately, we don't really get to see Kenjaku versus Mei Mei. That's just a fight we don't get to see. I forget if the anime extended it at all. I know in the manga we don't get to see it at all. And we don't even get to see Mei Mei use Burst Strike on Gojo. But it's revealed here that Gojo didn't face tank it. Like, he didn't just, like, let it do damage and bounce off of him or even absorb it or anything. He just used the Infinity to not actually deal with it. And Kenjaku avoided it, apparently, in their battle. And now Gojo... If Gojo and even Sukuna, if they don't want to do it, if they don't want to take it head on, Bird Strike may actually deal the damage. I know. You're going to be like, well, Pencil, you can't say that. But hey, for all the people out there who believe that Maximum Meteor would have done damage to 15-Finger Sukuna if it hit, I want to let you know, Bird Strike was taken more seriously than Maximum Meteor. Because Sukuna didn't even try to dodge it. He specifically destroyed them. He went out of his way to use his special grade curse tool to destroy them. He didn't bother destroying Maximum Meteor. Am I about to start pushing the Bird Strike above Maximum Meteor agenda? I may. Because I really don't like Jogo. But with that being the case, we see that it was all a distraction. As she says, he's distracted. The rest is up to you, Higuruma-kun. And we see the hammer comes down. Leroy Jenkins! As he slams the hammer down. And Sukuna, once again, Sukuna's forced to weave. Or at least it seems like it. Sukuna doesn't want to get hit by the hammer, so he dodges Higuruma, who swings down that big old boy. And then we see the main man himself. Pull up, he's pulling up. As Yuji comes in. So I do love Sukuna smiling here. He's like, come on now, kid, what you gonna do to me? Come on now, kid, you know you ain't got that. But we see Yuji Itadori may in fact have it on him and keep it on him at all times. As he starts, he's like a JoJo's character, just boom, 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 boom. Starts punching and rocking all the rocks. And they all go towards Sukuna. And Sukuna's like, okay. And he does acknowledge the rocks. He doesn't really react to him though. And then Higuruma's above Kashimo. Higuruma's above Kashimo. I want you to look at this. All the Kashimo fans, all the true CT, like, once again, I guess Kashimo and Kenny, the double K characters, they're just falling off a cliff right now. Because you know what Kashimo was unable to do that Higuruma just did? Higuruma, using his hammer and his own raw strength, was able to move one of Sukuna's arms. Kashimo never did that. Never. To true form Sukuna, especially. Maybe he moved 20-Finger extremely fatigued and damaged at Meguna. But true form Sukuna? No. You can go back to my 238 review when we see True Form Sukuna versus Kashimo really get on. And in that, you see there's no motion lines, nothing that Kashimo does, whether it be his punches or his kicks. Sukuna stops them all dead with one arm. So the fact that Sukuna has his wrist grabbed and forcefully moved to a point where he can't use it and he's forced to acknowledge it, Higuruma has more raw, at least tugging strength than Kashimo. That's crazy. And another thing here that may just put Itadori above Kashimo too, which is so crazy to me. He punches Sukuna, and not only does Sukuna acknowledge it, like, whoa, hold on a second. He doesn't take one, he doesn't take two, he takes... Y'all thought you were about to get a pencil feet shot, huh? No. That's only for the patrons. That's $75 patrons. Y'all want pencil feet pics? Donate $100 to the Patreon in one go. That's how you get pencil feet pics. But he blocks it with all three appendages that he has open, and he still shakes. Once again, Kashimo was never able to remotely shake and stagger Sukuna at all. And now that we know that, most likely, we don't know the full extent of Itadori's technique. We don't know what these are, whether these are cursed tools or his biology actually being altered. But we now know the technique that Itadori got was blood manipulation in particular. So it's likely he's just empowering his strikes with blood manipulation. I thought this may have been like a vibration type technique, but no, this is him empowering his strikes with blood manipulation. So the fact that he's actually able to rattle Sukuna and catch him off guard and have him questioning what it was when Kashimo was unable to do that, CT Kashimo, who's having his punches not grabbed by three hands, but grabbed by one. CT Kashimo. I'm going to have to kick him out of top 5. I think I may have to off this alone. But of course, there's more to come. I'll think about that more before I start going crazy like that. And we see that Higuruma declares, Itadori, we're having a retrial. And boom! Domain expansion. Deadly sentencing. And I love how the domain rises from the ground, the guillotines come down, and Sukuna finds himself wrapped up in court. And we see that Itadori brings up the idea of, we'll appeal. We'll have a retrial for the previous case and drag Sukuna into it. If we do that, we can charge Sukuna with the Shibuya massacre. And this is where they fumbled. This is specifically where they fumbled. This is 100% where they fumbled. And you want to know why? Because Sukuna can just say, I'm Megami Fushiguro. Ryomen Sukuna is a title. You cannot charge me for the actions that were undertaken by his body. Because I'm not in that anymore. That's how you do that. The thing with getting him on the massacre charge is that, remember, well, we'll get into it. We see that deadly sentencing chooses one of the 3 court tiers at random when prosecuting. That won't work. Hold on, if I apply for a retrial for a case that's already been settled, under the pretense of Sukuna being added as a co-defendant, reopening the case may be possible. The logic is, there isn't any direct benefit to me. It would essentially be as if I targeted Itadori with my technique. Even if it doesn't work, we can at least narrow down the crime to those who done while incarnated inside Itadori's body. And listen to this. Itadori Yuji is accused. Well, hold on. Itadori Yuji is accused under suspicion of committing mass slaughter in Shibuya on October 31st, 2018. So, remember, Itadori Yuji is accused, not Ryomen Sukuna. And the thing is, the way this is worded, Sukuna can easily argue, then why am I here? I'm not here. I'm Megami Fushiguro. I was not involved in the massacre. In fact, he can literally, like, especially if he plays hard into the Megami Fushiguro angle, he can literally argue, I was unconscious throughout the entire point of the massacre, so you cannot implicate me. Sure, Sukuna himself was in control of the body, but it's Itadori's body under the influence of Sukuna's fingers that was doing certain things. Megami Fushiguro, who Judge Man is likely to recognize as this defendant, he was asleep. He was literally asleep before the Shibuya massacre. Because the mass slaughter is specifically in reference to Malevolent Shrine. Megami was knocked out during an entire affair, because a Malevolent Shrine was specifically used on Mahoraga. So Sukuna has an easy way to argue out of this case. At least that's how I would argue it. I would argue I'm Megami. or I'm Sukuna and I don't count because I'm not human. Like, there are a couple different ways. I'm going to make a video talking about it, but I think they may have played themselves by hard locking themselves into this, especially since, as Higuruma says, it's like I'm targeting Itadori. So worst comes to worst, it could actually end with Itadori being found guilty again and getting death penalty again, but then Sukuna doesn't get confiscated, and they may at best get the Executioner's Sword. But hey, I'm going to say this. The Executioner's Sword is way less useful than a confiscation on Sukuna. So I think they may have played themselves. I'm not sure if they thought this through all too much. However, we see that Higuruma comes to Itadori's defense. It's time to properly play a lawyer, as he says, he didn't slaughter anyone. As his previous confession in high court was false, motivated by a strong sense of personal accountability. The real culprit is the king of curses, Ryomen Sukuna. And I love how Sukuna, he's ready. You know he's ready with his argument as he's posted up, grinning. Have the tides turned, ready for death. The battle of the courtroom is now in session. Boom, boom, boom. We have ended chapter 244 of Jujutsu Kaisen, and it was straight liquid gas. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yes. But yes, this chapter is indubitably worthy. Why? Why, you may wonder. Pencilman, how dare you say this chapter's worthy? Provide your evidence. Well, if we're in court and I'm here to provide evidence, allow me to provide evidence of the worthiness of this chapter. Number one, the character interactions of this chapter are fantastic. Whether it be little character interactions and bonding, or lack thereof, of Kusakabe and Miwa, two relatively unimportant characters. Whether it be the re-establishment of the connection between Kashimo and Hikari, and the establishment of the trio of Kirara, Hikari, and Kashimo. Whether it be the revelation and reveal of Kamo's location, and also his determination to complete his own character arc. Whether it be the idea of Higuruma and Kashimo getting in each other's way due to the natures of their interactions. Whether it be Higuruma and Kusakabe having a deep, intelligent discussion about the laws of nature, based on the Penal Code of Japan. Whether it be even Itadori Yuji himself learning from Kamo, and ultimately setting a jab directly at Choso. All of this stuff is fantastic on a character front. The development front is great to explain how they're going to do it, and how they're going to get Sukuna with this specific crime, even if I think there are some holes in it. And ultimately, seeing Mei get Bird Strike hype all over and over again is going to tickle my funny bone in a way that's fantastic. And I love Sukuna in this chapter. He's all smiles, all having a good time. The only time he doesn't smile is when he's slightly in shock by Higuruma being able to restrain him and Itadori punching him. But other than that, he's all grins, and I love Sukuna for that. And obviously the reveal that Itadori has blood manipulation and maybe another unknown technique based on the transformation of his arms is very, very, very exciting. There's so much more to learn and so much more to see. So this will be the end of this review. And I have to thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this chunker of a video, please do me a favor and leave The Trial of the King in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any of the second of the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you support for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel by clicking the little join button down below for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the 36-minute live reaction to this very chapter. Now, I want to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dagger the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Connor Plays, Red Wolf, 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Winter, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give a scrumptious thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. I'd like to give another chunka-dunka thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idem Okami. I'd like to give another thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give a hefty thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder,